Hey everybody, what is going on? This is Scott Garber back in the saddle of the Profluent Sports Podcast, where we are highlighting founders, investors, executives across the sports business landscape. Today, I'm excited to welcome our next guest, Ricardo Briceno, to the show, CEO of GameFam. Ricardo, my man, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Scott. Good morning. It's great to see you. It's a wonderful day. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you here as well. And as we continue to highlight just amazing folks that are helping shape the sporting market, Ricardo, excited to dive into today's conversation as GameFam is truly a platform that has been built to help bridge some of these amazing IPs from legacy audiences to younger audiences. But it's not my story to tell. So Ricardo, as we get into this, I think it's important to understand sort of who you are and your background leading up to GameFam. And then we're going to unpack all the exciting things that you guys are doing leading up to the World Cup and beyond. So, Ricardo, give the listeners a little background on your professional journey here.
Of course. Thank you. Yes. I'm the CEO of GameFam. I've been at GameFam about 5 years, but my journey has been in brand management, brand building. I started out my career actually at Procter Gamble on Pampers diapers. Then I went to business school, and then I moved to the world of Mattel and toys. So I got a little bit older in my target demographic, and also Mattel working on incredible brands like Hot Wheels, Barbie, some of their action figures brands. And about 5 years ago, I made the leap to GameFam. So now a little bit older, video gaming. But the through line and what's been really interesting is I've been tasked and I've built a career and great interest in figure out how to engage meaningfully with audiences, with the youth, and how to create relevance for brands across multiple platforms. And as we saw the emergence of Roblox as a massive platform with today 133 million daily active users, most of Gen Z and everyone Gen Alpha plays on Roblox, found it really interesting to figure out what's the right way for brands, for IP owners to engage on Roblox and to drive meaningful connection with those audiences. So GameFam is a really interesting company, a really interesting opportunity. The way the company works is we own a portfolio of games that get about 15 million visits or gameplay sessions every day. So we have games across every type of genre, leading games, and we live operate that portfolio. Because we have that portfolio, we understand really well the platform, the users, what players want to do. And then we understand really well on the second side of the business, we understand with brands what they're trying to accomplish. We guide them strategically on their objectives. And then we figure out what are ways for them to show up on Roblox in a way that delivers scale and impact. Ultimately, what matters is not just to be there, but to be there in a way that reaches a wide demographic and reaches them in a meaningful way so you can actually accomplish your objectives, right?
Absolutely. No, I think you're spot on. And I think as we skew younger in generations, they're able to sniff out authenticity quicker than anybody before. And so the idea of showing up meaningfully and intentfully and authentic is so important. And so, Ricardo, I think before we move on, our listener base spans from, legacy investors all the way down to young emerging CEOs and everybody in between. And we all hear about Roblox, but I don't think anybody truly understands the breadth of this platform when you hear 150 million users. Talk to us like we're coming out of Pampers. What is Roblox? And I think the follow-on question is, when did the sporting industry really start to lean into this platform and use it as a fan acquisition and education platform? Let's build off of that. Give us a little insight to what Roblox is.
I could probably spend like an hour talking about this, but I'll give you the TLDR. The TLDR, I think the way that I explain it to anyone that's never heard about Roblox or seen Roblox is kind of like the YouTube of gaming. Roblox in itself, it's not a game, it's a platform. You go into Roblox and there's a whole wide array of millions of games that you can play. It's like all the tiles, just like with YouTube. These are all games that are created by users. Just like in YouTube, the videos are UGC and you post your video. It's a very similar dynamic on Roblox. And as a consumer or as a player, you go on Roblox and you play all of these games. What's most important is that, we tend to think of Roblox as gaming because you play games within Roblox, but it's evolved with the scale that it has. It's evolved much more than from gaming into a community platform. definitely where audiences and players come in and hang out with your friends from IRL, and you hang out with friends from Roblox. So it's very much about community. In fact, a lot of these games, they're very simple, very quick games, and all of them are so much more fun to play with your friends. So it's really interesting because it's kind of it's a community, almost a social media platform where the subject matter is gaming. And one of the reasons it's become so hyper relevant is because it's really fun and because it's active, unlike the typical social media platforms that we know about and we love, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, where you consume content, you're here engaging, you're doing things, doing things with your friends in 3D world. So it's become incredibly engaging, and definitely a place to build community. We know that about 99% of Gen Z game, and of all those people, about 70% say that they build community or they use gaming as a way to socialize. So this is precisely the power of Roblox, and why it's grown so much.
No,
So
it's
why
it's
it
it's
matters to sports properties is, and actually it's broadly, it's why it matters to anyone that wants to engage Gen Z and Gen Alpha is because of the sheer number of users and the global nature, and finally the amount of time and engagement that happens there. They spend on average a day more time than on YouTube and on TikTok. So as the platform evolves and continues to grow, and also as those generations of players grow older, that's the place where you start building relevance. It's like decades ago, TV was the end all be all. YouTube shows up and starts kind of taking, it's a different way to engage, starts taking a bite of that apple. This is what's happening with Roblox as well. So if you are a brand, an IP that wants to be relevant or that needs to be relevant with Gen A, Gen Z, you got to have a Roblox strategy.
No, it's super interesting, right? And like, I mean, I think that this sort of leans into the way that we consume sport, right? For so long, we were traditionally just watching it, right? It was one way, and now we want to participate in it. Ricardo, I'm really curious, when we start to think about and talk to leagues, what does that look like from an education standpoint? Because this is incredibly different. Is it a pretty big barrier to get over sort of that traditional thinking when talking strategy on how to show up in Roblox? Is there some of the legacy ideas that do translate well? Give us a little insight to what that's like as we're watching the likes of the NFL and FIFA start to lean into this ecosystem to make sure they do show up in an authentic and organic way.
Yes, of course. It's definitely key to have a strategy for Gen Z and Alpha that includes Roblox. And I don't think, by the way, it's a strategy that necessarily competes with your typical broadcast, with the in person events. It's more, how do you extend the fan experience to places where you haven't been before and to places where these younger generations are hanging out. But you hit the nail on the head a little bit ago when you said that it's incredibly important to show up with authenticity. If you don't show up with authenticity, you might as well not show up. But the second thing that's really important is to do it with scale. Ultimately, it's really important to fish where the fish are.
Mm.
Brands, and there's been a lot of attempts at every brand in every league has an objective, to be honest. And it's hard to evaluate success without knowing what the objectives are. But if the objective is to build as large a community and deliver as much impact as possible, then it's really important to fish where the fish are. There's been a number of brands, leagues, or IP that have started their own games. And it's really hard to bring an audience to those games, especially in a platform that is so algorithmic. What right now, FIFA with GameFam, we've had FIFA Super Soccer, our game on Roblox, has become the number one official sports game on Roblox. It's a massive game, over 1 billion lifetime gameplay sessions. We get about almost 1 million daily active users. But it all started from it was a really interesting journey. FIFA had been one of the early movers and early interest in the platform, and they had been doing little things to test and learn to figure out what's the right way to show up. So we've been working with FIFA about almost 2 years now. GameFam, one of our games, is Super League Soccer, kind of one of the original soccer games. Great community of soccer fans within Roblox. So we started out doing an event with FIFA to unveil the new trophy for the FIFA Club World Cup. It did incredibly well. Then 6 months later, the Club World Cup came to life, and we did an event for the Club World Cup, the FIFA Club World Cup within Super League Soccer. It did incredibly well. That transitioned into a FIFA event within the game. And last December, we kind of rebranded and relaunched the game from Super League Soccer into FIFA Super Soccer with all of the FIFA IP. We brought on clubs, we brought on national teams, we brought on also Adidas as an event, because it's a really interesting place for brands like Adidas to show up authentically. So again, we were bringing to the audience in Roblox that was already playing soccer or football, with the one that you play with your feet, and were already enjoying, they were playing soccer the way that they wanted to play. We were just bringing the IP that they love as soccer fans in a way that is relevant to them, rather than to force them to tell them this is what FIFA needs to look like, this is what you think about as FIFA, and this is how you play FIFA. That's what's led to the big success. The NFL actually followed a similar playbook, and they've been successful as well.
Interesting. Yeah. Not number one. So,
It can only
Ricardo, I
be
gotta
one, right?
listen. I mean, it depends on who you ask, right? But I'm not here for that debate right now. We're world champions in everything, and we'll leave it at that. So I'm going to go a little off script here, but I'm genuinely curious, right? When we look at some of the traditional platforms like IG or TikTok or LinkedIn per se. It's how do we sort of use this digital platform? And now there's an over demand in the offline community. How do I start to go ahead and bridge that gap between digital and IRL? I'm curious, with the way that you guys are running events with FIFA and Adidas and like sort of this very programmatic rollout and adoption. Do you see any demand for the Roblox community to meet in person, or is this strictly just a digital engagement? I'm just sort of curious, like from working in it for so long, your observations there.
So I actually think there is a massive opportunity to connect what happens IRL with what happens digitally. If you
Mm,
think about it, that is exactly how the players, how the kids, how the audience operate. Kid might be in school in the morning, and then after that, they go play soccer with their friends. They get home, do homework, and then they go into Roblox with the same friends. So they are already transitioning from IRL to digital seamlessly. If you ask a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old about this, like there's no division. Us in the adult world, we tend to think about those divisions because these are the marketing channels. Instagram is digital, TV is linear. There's what you do in experiential. Then you go to a store and buy in physical, and but the world is not segmented like that. Now,
mm.
still a lot of the Roblox activations are still a little segmented, but there's a lot of opportunities to do things that kind of bridge those. Chipotle has done very successfully. So it's a really fun example. A few activations on Roblox where they had their Roblox game, and as you complete things in the Roblox game, you get a free burrito. In the actual store. It's been really successful. It sounds like a simple mechanic, but those are the things that drive a lot of attention, a lot of connection. And it's true for physical world, but also combining and bridging what happens on TikTok or what happens on YouTube or what happens on Discord. In fact, there's a really thriving community of TikTok and YouTube creators that specialize in Roblox content. And they live stream as they're playing with their friends or with their fans on a Roblox game. And we've done things like that when we work with Old Navy. We had a really cool campaign where we had some influencers or TikTokers live streaming with their fans, and they were gifting them things as they were playing together, a little surprise and delight. So there's already ways to bridge that. As it relates to live events and or sports, there's a lot of ways to extend, and we have a lot of things planned for the World Cup. But some things that we've done include we did an event for US Soccer a few weeks ago within FIFA Super Soccer, where we kind of unveiled or introduced the new kit, the one that they're going to play in the World Cup within the game. It was really cool. You get to play as the Team USA, you get to play in the new kit, but also what we found out is that about a third of the players said that they found out about the new kit within the game. So it's really interesting. And of all those, about 3/4 said that they would probably or definitely want to buy the kit. That doesn't mean that they bought it, but it just means that they found a way, we found a way together to allow them to reach new players and new audience that they weren't reaching before because they might not be watching the games on TV. It's not about competing with TV. It's about extending the experience and making it broader.
Well, and I think the reality is like how I consume. Like, I mean, I was born into a world where we had dial-up internet, right? Like, I mean, when you think about the worlds that these kids come into versus the parents who only had television, right? I think that it's meeting them at the medium in which that they're used to consuming, right? And for so long it was trying to fit it all into one box. Now I think you're so spot on. Like, you got to go fish where the fish are at. And so I'm curious, sort of, when we think about this, I'm going to shift to the more economics and the business side of it, right? Obviously, like, it's a significant investment from IP holders, from leagues, to be able to go ahead and build within this environment. Do you think about the opportunity, or do you hear more of this? Is it about monetizing today, or sort of building that next generation of fans that will help support and engage over the next 20 years? What are you seeing the demand from the rights holders as they start to invest in Roblox?
That's a hot topic, and I'm gonna give you my take, and I don't pretend for this to be the absolute truth. But what I've seen as a journey is that because Roblox is in the gaming category, gaming tended to be a licensing category for brands, or an IP category or like a monetizing category. So the initial intuition for everyone is, I'm going to be on Roblox, I'm going to make money. And in reality, what that failed to see is the scale of Roblox and the scale of the engagement. So from my point of view, there are opportunities to monetize, but the much bigger opportunity is to engage fans, to build fandom that then you monetize in a different way. Again, I'm going to go back to my analogy. It behaves a lot more like YouTube and TikTok, and than anything else, where yes, there are some IP owners that have built businesses on YouTube. Cocomelon is a perfect example. They're fantastic. But the majority of the brands use YouTube and TikTok as a way to build fan engagement so that they can then monetize in a different way, in the sales of physical products, in the sale of movie tickets, in the downloads of music, whatever it might be, but not necessarily as a primary monetization platform. To me, for a brand, that should be the primary role of Roblox. There's always exceptions, and no brand is the same to the other one. But to me, that is the easiest and biggest opportunity, and that's how brands should think about Roblox, as a consumer engagement, fandom creation, and ultimately demand creation.
I look at, like, I mean, you're an expert. You live in this space every day. From the outside, I think the same thing, right? Like, I mean, there needs to be an investment in the long tail as we look at the amount of capital that's coming into the sporting ecosystem, not only from participation in sport, but engagement in sport. And I think that it's incredibly challenging to service, linear TV contracts while also giving the exposure to grow the game and meet the younger generations in an intentional way. And so I tend to lean in the same direction as you, where this is an investment into the future of fandom in your sport, not just the immediacy of trying to monetize it. Although I think two things can be true there, right? It's if done correctly, it sounds like there are some brands that have leaned in and, have really executed this strategy to capitalize in the short term while plant the seed and lay the foundation for the long term. I'm curious, and I'm going to stick sort of in this vein, and then we'll go into the athlete creator evolution. But, this immersive sport experience is still what I'll call sort of in its infancy, but it displays a lot of similar properties as, like, media rights. So I'm curious, when we start to think about engaging within Roblox right now, do you see this becoming more of a media rights conversation on how we engage with this property? Or is it just, we want to come in and sort of rent the space and build and acquire? Curious, like, if there's any conversations that you hear within your world that are relevant to this topic.
I think it's still early days to give you a definitive answer there. I think that sports properties are still trying to figure out what's the way to show up with scale and consistently, and not a lot have done it to the right scale. Again, I think that FIFA and the NFL are one of the few examples where you have not a spike for an event, but you have a consistent audience that comes in and day out. What that then could eventually transition into a media rights conversation. So I don't know that I can give you much more insight into that, but I do think that ultimately the value here will continue to be fan engagement, and as IP owners create that big audience within Roblox, that also becomes really valuable inventory that can be monetized in a different way.
Totally
Perfect
agree.
example is the Adidas program that I mentioned within FIFA Super Soccer. Adidas is interesting in showing up there as long-standing partners to FIFA, just like they're interested in being their official partner, sponsoring the World Cup, making the ball for the World Cup. So it just becomes one extension of where the IP shows up and where fandom is built, and it becomes media inventory as well.
Which is exciting, right? Like, I mean, I think that's, to me, it's not just playing the puck where it is, but it's trying to see where the puck is going. And, more real estate, more authenticity creates more opportunities for real world engagement and ultimately driving commercial value, which is what we're here for. Ricardo, I'm curious, as we start to turn the corner and sort of think about not like just where we're at, but the evolution of this, one thing that stuck out to me is, we've watched athletes become creators, creators become athlete platforms, sort of this really nice harmonious exchange between the two. And we've watched leagues built off the back of it. I'm curious, how does Roblox accelerate that evolution? And if there's any use cases that you see that are currently going on, would love to lean into that.
I think, that's a really interesting topic. And I think again, it's still early days and there's no playbook. This is one of the reasons why I personally find Roblox so compelling. There's not a playbook. So we're always testing and learning and figuring things out. How do we do things better? But back to the question, there's been a lot of events and evolving events on music artists, for example, showing up on Roblox. Started with concerts, then evolved into events within games. So we're starting to see some of the, creators in that space. There's been also some NFL players showing up in some other Roblox games for events. So, we're starting to see the crossover between fandom and sports into fandom within Roblox. I think that that's only going to accelerate. We hope to create some of that also for soccer athletes or soccer stars within FIFA Super Soccer. But there's also the entire other kind of source of fandom of big players and big personalities that come from this world. We see it in people that create games that become personalities, but also as you rank them up the leaderboards in a certain game, then you also have a personality, because in every Roblox game, you're playing as yourself. It's your avatar, but you're playing as yourself. You're not playing, if you're playing FIFA Super Soccer, you're not playing as Messi, even though we would all love to be Messi. I'm playing as Ricardo, or as Rick is my avatar. And that's the way that I play across every game, wearing my outfit, wearing my hat. So it allows you to become your own persona. And as those people become more popular, that we can create the idea of more creators and influencers and start bridging the gap between physical and digital. And finally, I can see you have a game that is competitive. It's right now you can play 4 versus 4 or 7 versus 7. But when you're playing 4 versus 4, I am playing alongside 3 other people on my team. I'm not playing with a computer against 4 other people on the other team. So it's very social. It's very competitive in nature too. So it opens opportunities for tournaments. Like back to kind of the esport situation. It's another way to show up. It's another way to build fandom. It's another way to create extension for the brand.
No, it's really quite cool, Ricardo. I got to ask you, as a participant in Roblox, and with the audience skewing younger, give me that experience for you. I've never been on the platform, but I'm curious for you. Like, does it provoke a human experience? What is that like?
Man, I am not the right person to ask that question, because I am definitely too old and I cannot go into any game without getting completely destroyed by everyone else. I'm just terrible at it. But what I can tell you is that it is definitely a very social experience. It's a very community experience. Playing any game, most games, with your friends, you're chatting while you either on Discord or within Roblox or even on the phone. And that's a behavior that we see in the typical players, is that completely different experience. It's a very fun experience. So I would encourage that if anyone wants to experience what Roblox looks like, I'll give you two tips. One, watch YouTube videos because it'll be really easy to see what a game is about. But two, if you really want to experience this, is either play with your kids or play with a group of friends, play with other people the same game, because that is the true experience and that is what makes it so fun, so engaging, and why Roblox has the number it has.
It's truly community, right? That's, excuse me, at its essence, that's what the platform is there for. Ricardo, give me a little insight, right, as we start to turn the corner. How is GameFam continuing to lean into the World Cup, the big tentpole moments that are coming? Give me a little insight. What's on the roadmap for you guys?
So we're super excited. I'm Latin American. I remember the World Cup since I was little, and it's the biggest thing ever. So we have a lot of really good plans. The 2026 World Cup is going to be massive on its own. And what we're going to do is just extend it a little further. It's going to be a really fun event within Roblox. We're going to have all 48 teams in the game. We're going to have different quests and battle pass showing how the game is evolving as the actual World Cup in real life is progressing. We're going to have scoreboards and leaderboards and really fun things that connect the tournament IRL with the tournament in the game. So really excited about that. There's some events going on in the game in the lead up to the World Cup. Like I mentioned, we did a US soccer event a few weeks ago. Today, we're launching an event with Borussia Dortmund, the German team. So that'll be really fun for next week. And we have a couple more events coming up until right before we transition into full on World Cup mode. So, we're learning. It's exciting. We have an exciting fan base and, we're looking forward to everything that's going to happen. It's going to be massive outside of Roblox. It's going to be big within Roblox too. And, the good thing is that even though the World Cup happens every 4 years, the soccer calendar continues and we've become the hub of soccer in general on Roblox. So we're looking forward to also the starts of the leagues after the World Cup. And next year we have the Women's World Cup. So there's a lot of events in the pipeline, which I'm excited for. We're going to learn a lot from this World Cup, and that'll help us do bigger and better things for ourselves and for all our partners as new events come up.
How exciting. And I'd be remiss to not double down on it, right? With such the attention on the World Cup this year, I think a month away now, we're from our side just seeing a tremendous over index in the game rising. How are leagues like the MLS, the USL, the NWSL, do you see them drafting off of what you guys are doing with the World Cup and trying to tighten their strategy in Roblox and draft off the momentum? Sort of curious the relationship there.
There's a lot of interest in all leagues. There's a lot of interest from clubs. It's a slow moving conversation because there's a lot of rights challenges, if you will. There's still a lot of learning and education to be had about what Roblox means to all of these leagues. And it's a process. These are entities that are used to put in some of the biggest and best live events and broadcast events. So that's what they specialize on, and they're fantastic at it. So this is almost a new muscle that you need to develop, and they want to be very thoughtful about it. There's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of stake because they also want to protect and build their brands and in the right way. So I do see them leaning in. I do see that there's more and more interest. Exactly how they're going to show up and when, I don't know, but I can guarantee that we're going to see more leagues, more clubs, more teams showing up on Roblox in different ways. And hopefully a lot of them partnering with GameFam and even within FIFA Super Soccer.
And you beat me to it. That's where I was going to end, right? Like, we have a lot of our listeners are founders, innovators, league operators. Ricardo, if someone is listening to this and is curious on how to get more involved in Roblox, work with GameFam and start to build this strategy out, what's the best way to go ahead and get in touch with you and your team to continue the conversation?
Reach out on our LinkedIn, on our website. We're here. We're really proud of all the work that we've done. We've done over 160 campaigns for different brands. We've worked with most major brands, from toys and entertainment to sports, music, fashion and apparel, retail. So, I think that that's one of the things that invigorates me and the team is, taking on a challenge and figuring out what a brand, what an IP is looking to do, and on Roblox, and trying to make them successful. To the extent that they're successful, will be successful. It's a very interesting intellectual challenge, and it can be a really profitable and fruitful thing to do for a brand.
No, I totally agree. And I think that as we wind this down, Ricardo, we talk so much about the formula that got us here isn't going to be the formula that gets us where we want to go. And so, even if it's just for an exploratory conversation, if you heard a nugget in here, I encourage everyone to lean in and just start to be a student of the game, because generationally we are consuming differently. And it's important for us to have a cohesive 360 strategy as we scale these IPs, whether it is in sport or whatever that may be, to meet the audience where they're at. Ricardo, from the Profluence team, thank you so much for what you and GameFam are doing. I will go get a Roblox account. I want to be on your team in FIFA Super or Soccer Fan, so we can come in and experience it all together. And I look forward to doing this again soon as you guys continue to grow and scale. Have a good one, my friend.
Thank you for having us, and have a great rest of the day.
Talk soon.
Bye.